a world that tells you, do whatever you want, the greatest heresy is denying yourself anything. Where impulsiveness reigns, the self-controlled person seems like a freak, an outsider, a loner. But this is where their strength lies, because true freedom, the kind they don't talk about on billboards or in motivational podcasts, is not about doing everything. It's about the ability to restrain oneself. And no, this isn't a movie about productivity or waking up at 5 a.m. and cold showers. This is a movie about how self-discipline is a civil war, and if you don't win it with yourself, you'll lose it to the whole world. Contrary to what self-help guides say, self-discipline isn't pleasant. It's not candlelight meditation. It's not calligraphy with affirmation. It's a bloody battle between you and you. Between the part that wants to take shortcuts and the part that understands the price of true self-mastery. Epictetus, the Stoic slave, said, "Anyone who is not the master of himself is not free." And that's where it all begins. There's no mastery over the world if there's no mastery over yourself. There's no influence if you're a slave to your own impulses. There's no power if every temptation has control over you. Self-discipline is rebellion. Rebellion against biology, against easy rewards, against a society that tells you, fulfill yourself, let go, you deserve it. And you say not now, because you understand that life isn't a collection of whims, but the architecture of will. Notice one thing. Most people can't last even 15 minutes in silence today. Their mind needs to be fed. Scroll, sound, image, dopamine. Not because they are stupid, but because they are untrained. The world doesn't want you to be disciplined, able to concentrate, able to refuse. Because a disciplined person is dangerous. You can't easily manipulate them. They don't need external rewards. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. They know. And that's why self-discipline is today's elite currency. It's not about being better than others. It's about being stronger than the person you were yesterday. It's not about perfection. It's about constantly challenging your weaknesses. In a society of mediocrity, self-control becomes a form of aristocracy of the spirit. People ask, how can I be more disciplined? They search for habits, to-do lists, apps. But that's a mistake, because self-discipline is not a tool. It's an identity. Either you are it, or you're pretending to be someone who's trying. Don't ask what a disciplined person does. Ask who have they become for it to be natural for them. It's not about waking up at 5 p.m. It's about being someone who, even in the dark, knows where they're going. Because discipline is not a compulsion. It's freedom from your own weaknesses. It's the decision that the world won't tell you who you are, you will. Discipline is not romantic. It's not beautiful photos of a desk with coffee and a notebook. It's pain, loneliness, sacrifice. It's saying no when everyone says yes. It's being misunderstood. It's choosing a path you walk alone, without applause. Because self-discipline is an act of offering yourself to a future that doesn't yet exist. It's believing that today's pain makes sense, even if you can't see the reward yet. And most people can't endure it. Because it's easier to be a victim of impulse than an architect of patience. There's a freedom that screams, do whatever you want. And there's a freedom that whispers, master yourself, and the world will begin to bend. One leads to chaos, the other, to power. Not over others, but over yourself. And that is a power no one can take from you. Because the person who masters their desires cannot be bought. The person who doesn't need external rewards cannot be controlled. The person who doesn't react impulsively becomes the architect of reality, not its victim. It's not the world that enslaves you. It's you, whenever you allow a temporary impulse to decide for you. But you can break it, not through a magical morning routine, but by the decision. Today you become someone who doesn't run from discipline, but lives it. Because the freedom you're truly searching for begins where comfort ends. It's not about being productive. It's about being impenetrable. A focused person is a mystery. In an age of dopamine addiction, your silence disturbs, your absence irritates, and your silence weighs like a declaration of war. You stop being part of the crowd. You become an unsettling anomaly, and that's why you gain the advantage. Focus is the modern heresy, because they tell you to be available 24/7. They told you to respond immediately, react impulsively, consume without reflection. But if instead you close the door, turn off the screen, cut off notifications, and sit in silence, you begin to hear things the world wants to drown out. The voice of the inner commander, This voice doesn't speak softly, it commands, focus, cut off, let go, decide. Because true concentration is not a passive state of mind, it's a warrior's choice. It's an act of disobedience to chaos. It's showing the world that you are not a victim of distractions. You are an executor. Think about it. How many people do you know who can really think deeply? Who can sit for hours, breaking down a problem, reading, taking notes, analyzing? It's no accident that most can't, because it hurts. Concentration hurts. It's the pain of discipline that burns superficial pleasures. It's the pain of loneliness that exposes your inner fears. It's the pain of patience that doesn't give you instant gratification. But from that pain, steel is forged. And when others seek impulses, you create systems. When others desperately crave attention, you redirect it to build an empire. Your silence becomes your brand. Your absence begins to speak louder than 1,000 words. There is nothing more disturbing for the crowd than a person who has cut themselves off, not to escape, but to strengthen themselves. Because this is not withdrawal, this is calibration. You are not unavailable because you are weak. You are unavailable because you are preparing. Your concentration is a shield, but also a blade. It separates you from what is irrelevant, but at the same time it prepares you for precise cutting when the time for action comes. And when you return, because you will not be the same person. You will be kinder, but more determined, quieter, but more noticeable, calmer, but much more dangerous. Because a person who can truly concentrate does not need to compete, they only need to show up. When you eliminate the noise, something else starts speaking, something you haven't heard before, your inner voice, the real one, not one shaped by opinions, not one driven by fear of failure, not one fed by Instagram, comparisons, and survival anxiety, only the deep, calm voice that has been drowned out your entire life. This voice doesn't speak loudly, it doesn't scream, it whispers, and only when the world goes silent, it is there that true concentration is born. Not in a productivity app, not in the morning coffee, not in planning your week. It is born in the courage to be alone with yourself, to boredom, to unpredictability, to emptiness. Most people run from that emptiness because it reminds them of who they are not. It reminds them that they have no plan, that their actions are often reactions, not decisions. But the philosopher of internal warfare, the conscious person, does not run. They sit across from emptiness and look it in the eye. They ask it questions the world has no answers to. Because concentration is not only the ability to focus, it is also the ability to endure yourself, to face what is uncomfortable, what is incomprehensible, what is still unformed. It is there that mental strength is built, not in action, but in waiting, not in the slogan "do more," but in understand more. And this is the moment when most fall away, because they don't understand that the most powerful form of action is intention without haste, a plan without chaos, movement without the need for escape. This is not stagnation. This is conscious waiting, patience as a strategy, not weakness. Do you know that feeling when someone walks into a room and doesn't need to say anything, but everyone feels their presence? It's not charisma, it's concentration. Accumulated, grounded, rooted. People get distracted because they don't know who they are without those distractions. So they feed on novelty, to avoid feeling the hunger for meaning. But novelty is a cheap drug. It works temporarily, it's addictive, and it leaves a void larger than the one it started from. True influence does not require exposure. It requires consistency and depth. And these things are born only in solitary silence, in hours that are invisible, in moments when the world is asleep, and you are alone and aware. So if you truly want to enter the game of power over yourself and others, you must learn to sit alone, without a phone, without music, without conversation, and feel what stirs within you. Because what stirs, that's your unfulfilled needs. And what endures, that's your strength. When a person gains the ability to deeply focus, they begin to notice something disturbing, that the world around them is not just chaos, but a designed trap, an unbroken stream of notifications, colorful screens, endless, urgent messages. These are not flaws in the system, they are its foundation. The system doesn't want you to think, it wants you to react. Reacting is predictable, it can be controlled, but silence, stillness, and focus, Those are acts of rebellion. They are moments when you slip away from their map. Instead of being a predictable unit in a mass statistic, you become a singularity, an exception, and exceptions are dangerous because they can't be framed, sold a solution, or directed towards the right target of anger. That's why philosophers, thinkers, mystics, and tyrants have agreed on one thing through the ages. Whoever controls attention, controls reality, and that's why focus is not just a tool, it's a weapon. But this weapon comes with a price, and that price is loneliness, withdrawal, breaking the connection with the noise that keeps you tethered to the external world. At first, this silence will hurt. You'll see how many of your emotions were reflections of external stimuli, how little of what you thought was truly yours. People who lived off your scattered attention will start to leave you. People who fed off your availability, your automatic yes, your lack of boundaries. You'll see how the world values your absence within yourself, as long as you are present for it. But then something strange will happen. You will start to regain strength, not spectacularly, not like a hero in a Hollywood movie, but quietly, methodically, day by day. Your mind will start to work deeper. Your decisions will become sharper. You'll start speaking less, but your words will carry more weight. You will become a reference point for others, not because you try to lead, but because you are unshakable, and people consciously or unconsciously will begin to gravitate towards this unshakability, towards this silence that is not emptiness, but the density of existence. Because true strength is not about how much you can do in a day, but how deep you can reach in a single moment. Depth, not quantity. Intention, not intensity. That's why those who truly rule the world are often unnoticed. They don't shout, they don't seek validation, they know. And knowledge, true knowledge, is always quiet. So concentration is not just a practice, it's a lifestyle. It's a choice of existence outside the system that wants to force you into constant reaction. It's the continuous act of refusal, refusing instant gratification, cheap emotions, addictive interactions. This means not everyone will understand you. In fact, most will misinterpret you. They'll think you are cold, distant, maybe even arrogant. But it's not about that. It's about whether you are loyal to yourself. Because ultimately, the greatest luxury of the 21st century is not time, it's not money. Greatest luxury is undisturbed attention. Attention that you can direct wherever you want. Attention that hasn't been divided into 1,000 fragments. Attention that becomes a laser, not a spotlight. Attention that creates reality. So if you feel something within you demands silence, that a certain inner voice demands that you withdraw and stop reacting, don't ignore it. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of transformation. It's an invitation to a different dimension of being, a dimension where you stop being a product and become a designer. Because in a world full of distractions, focus is not a habit, it's rebellion. In a world where access to information is unlimited and attention is fragmented by thousands of stimuli, a focused mind becomes more than a rarity. It becomes a form of power. But it's not just about productivity. It's about control over your own consciousness, over yourself. A person who can say no, not to distraction, not to impulse, not to the temptation of instant satisfaction, is a person who regains their power, not over the world, over themselves. And that's enough to make the world bend. True strength doesn't shout, it doesn't need to. Its presence is felt in silence, in a gaze that doesn't seek validation, in a posture that doesn't crave attention, because it already has it, from itself. This is the moment when philosophy meets brutal practicality, when thought becomes a blade, and focus, an execution. Every distracted moment is surrender. Every unconscious impulse is renouncing the throne. The throne is the mind. Your dominion begins in silence. Everything you have can be taken from you, wealth, status, even relationships. But one thing belongs only to you, attention. And it is from it that identity is born. Not from the past, not from the future, from what you focus on now. People say they don't have time, but time is just the shadow of your attention. Where you direct it, there your reality blooms. Most allow others to trade their attention as a commodity. The media, apps, loudmouths, and narcissists. You can be the exception. This doesn't mean being a cold robot. It means living with an intensity that frightens people accustomed to superficiality. Because concentration is not just an act of the mind, it is an act of courage. You reject the noise, you enter a space where there is nothing except for you, and this is where everything happens, the real battle, because when the stimuli disappear, and no one is watching you, there is only you, without masks, without an audience, without a script. And in this emptiness, the truth reveals itself. You are either the creator of your identity, or a slave to someone else's algorithms. Silence is not empty, silence is full of potential. But only those who can be in it, who are not afraid to hear their own thoughts without a filter, can extract strength from it. But if you really want to understand the power of concentration, you must understand something even deeper, something no productivity guide will tell you. Concentration is not just focusing on a task, it is the choice to exist in a reality others avoid. An ordinary person runs from themselves. They need music, conversations, notifications, TV shows. Every sound, every interaction is a curtain they can hide behind. But a person who is focused is the one who tears down those curtains and sits alone across from themselves. This is not comfortable, because true concentration requires confronting who you are when no one is watching you, when there are no congratulations, no likes, no external confirmation. It requires mental strength, which is not built through checklists, but through
solitude. In silence, chaos reveals itself. Thoughts become louder, desires more urgent. But it is precisely then that transformation begins. Because if you can master that chaos, you can master the external world. First, you must defeat yourself before you can defeat anything else. Imagine your attention as a sword. Every time you scatter it, you dull the blade. Every notification, every mindless conversation, every jump from one stimulus to the next is another cut in the steel of your consciousness. And then you wonder why you can't cut anything meaningful from your life. A focused person is an unpredictable person. They stay silent when others speak. They watch when others blink. Their presence is heavy, but not because they speak loudly, but because they don't have to speak at all. They are the person who controls time, not because they have more hours, but because they waste none. When others live in distraction, they live in intention. When others get excited, they focus. When others react, they create. Machiavelli didn't write about concentration because it was fashionable. He wrote about power, and concentration is the highest form of power a person can possess, over themselves, over their decisions, over their energy. Because when you have focus, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to seek recognition. You don't need to chase anything. You attract through the intensity of your presence. That's why the greatest individuals in history, whether warriors, philosophers, or empire builders, have always shared one trait: a radical, almost brutal ability to concentrate. They could shut themselves off from everything unnecessary and focus only on what led to their goal. Because this is the true alchemy of concentration. It's not about doing more. It's about doing only what matters, and then doing it with such intensity that the world has no choice. It must notice you. But here is the most important question: why even concentrate at all? Why nurture silence when the world rewards noise? Because only in silence can we hear ourselves, and only by hearing ourselves can we create. Not copy, not repeat, but create. It is this silence, this concentration, that is the gateway to authenticity, to a form of existence that is not reactive, but initiatory. It is not a mirror reflection of others, but your own light, and that light doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need likes, doesn't need comments, doesn't need a crowd. In fact, it avoids them, because true strength doesn't shine, it radiates. It doesn't ask for attention, it attracts it. And it is in this silence, in this solitude, that we begin to understand that concentration is not a technique. It is a lifestyle. It is a choice. It is an act of courage in a world that constantly distracts us. At this moment, do a simple exercise. Think about when you were truly alone last time, not physically, mentally, when you didn't check notifications, when you didn't react to stimuli, when you didn't allow the world to enter your thoughts. That's rare, isn't it? Because the modern world is designed so that you are never alone. Because in solitude, you discover the truth, and the truth is dangerous for the system, for structures, for control. Because a focused person is a free person, and a free person is a threat. That's why concentration is rebellion. It is an act of defiance. It is saying no to dictatorship of noise.
It is breaking the chains of attachment to instant gratification. And understand this. This rebellion doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet, precise, almost unnoticed. But its power is revolutionary, because a person who can sit in silence and listen to their thoughts doesn't need anyone's guidance. They don't need a guru. They don't need idols. They become the source themselves, autonomous, unwavering, focused. Now, look at your life, your choices, your mornings, your evenings. Do you choose what you focus on, or do others choose for you? If the answer worries you, that's good. Worry is the first signal of awakening. And awakening is not comfortable. It is brutal. It is relentless. But it is necessary. In Stoic philosophy it was said, do not let what you cannot control rob you of what you can. And you can control your attention, your presence, your concentration. It's your ground, your terrain, your battlefield. And if you give it up, you lost before you began. But if you defend it, you'll win something more than a battle. You'll win yourself. Because concentration is not just a means, it is the goal itself. It's a path where you don't need applause, where you don't need to be seen, you just need to be present, truly present. And maybe that's when the world considers you absent, you become the most real.